your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan, and we have a very special guest via Zoom, and we're going to be talking about something that is maybe at the core of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. His book is entitled Always at Choice. It's basically dealing with strategies for moving on after the death of a spouse or a life trauma. And Larry Freeborg, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. I have been looking forward to this conversation with you for quite some time.
Very good. So have I. I love what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, from what I have here, wisdom for finding your way forward in life, love, relationships, and business. You got to recognize your choice points. And that's something that I know that Greg Braden, he kind of, I don't know that he necessarily coined the phrase choice point, but we have a lot of those throughout our lives. And you and I could sit here and say, well, I was at this age and I was at this point and this and this and that was a choice point and that was a choice point. And I often say to people, and Larry, I would say to you that you as a child made choices, all right? That I also, as a child, made choices, whether we were aware of it or not. Those choices cascaded into this meeting and conversation that you and I are having now. Now, that's pretty wild to think about, that choices going back that far, but the reality is that we sort of set up the dynamic from a very early age of where we're going to be down the road. And you've heard that phrase when looking for a job. Well, where do you see yourself in a year or 5 years in this company? I have no idea. Right. I may not even be here in 6 months, if things don't work out and it's a hostile work environment, et cetera, et cetera. Or somebody comes along with a better job offer and more money and that kind of thing. And the same thing is true in relationships. But you are talking about the fact that, as I have often spoken, that we are always at that choice point, if you will. We're always in a position where we're making choices. But that's the core of our existence, isn't it?
Yes. It's I'm reflecting on my choice points as you were talking and realizing that as a kid, I didn't realize I was a choice. All my big choice was to please my dad, and the other one was to uh, please the religious source that I was trying to connect up with at that time. But it wasn't until I just recently took on, um, I forgot his first name, but his positive intelligence is the name of his work. And the point is that all of us have saboteurs, and they name that there are only 10 saboteurs that guide our life and kind of guide us by the up through five. What happens at 5 years old, they're there to protect us at the beginning as kids. But after a while, they become deterrents to us actually taking advantage of our life. And one of the ones that dogged me all the time was never being enough, not thinking that I wasn't adequate to do the job. And that dogged me for a long time until I figured out that I didn't have to live with that as the choice point of my life, that I could actually have value being just the person I am, which is probably why it took me 20 years to think about writing this book and 3.5 years to write it. But I've learned the value of having help to get through all these things.
Well, you and I are quite similar in that regard. My book Choices from the foundation of its creation, 2001. And it's based upon, of course, if you read the early part of the book, you see that it was based upon an experience that I had with my present wife, who was going through a cancer diagnosis and surgery and chemo. And the impetus of the story was, do you want to live or do you want to die? I may not like your choice, but I'll support you in it. And that's how it started in 2001. And then I didn't start really writing it until maybe 2006 or 7, which still means that it took another 10 to 15 years. So you and I can relate in that regard. And you know what I was told by many of my guests when I would share that story is, well, remember, Richard, there is divine right timing. It will come out when it's time. And it did September of 2024. So I'm very excited about that. But I'm also excited about your work in this regard to dealing with this subject, which I said to you earlier is sort of near and dear to my heart. Not because I've had a near death experience, and not even because I've experienced the passing of a father and a sister and a best friend of 53 years, and a relationship, and obviously several different jobs, because that is an aspect of death and dying. But I know we're
Absolutely.
speaking more of people, not so much situations.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have a lot of difficulty, but one of the things that strikes me when I look back on some of these passings of individuals, of human beings, I've had different reactions to each one of them. My grandmother, when she passed away back in the 70s, 1970s, I was asked by my mother at one point, if you don't calm down, I'm going to have you leave the church, because I was just bawling, missing
Yeah.
the woman. Then, when I was working for a radio station and the husband of one of the people that worked at the station had passed away, we were in the church, and I'm sitting there looking around going, this person is now everywhere. They're everywhere. Then, when my father passed away, I had a moment in the shower where I spent 5 to 10 minutes just bawling, just bawling. And then, when my best friend of 53 years passed away, I haven't shed a tear for him. And the reason is because every time I think about him, I start laughing because we had so much fun together. So
Yeah.
it seems to me when we talk about these choice points regarding dealing with the passing of spouses or other loved ones, or even, again, the traumatic experiences that we life traumas, um, we're not going to have the same reaction every time. And would I be fair in saying that it would be odd and I might need either medication or institutionalization if I responded every single time to one of these situations the same way.
It's my insight was we don't do a very good job of teaching grief to our children. And so I reflected on that when I was learning how to deal with grief myself, is that what was my experiences of grief? When I was 7 years old, one of my buddies in grade school drowned. And so I went to the church and watched what they did and tried to figure out, well, what am I supposed to do now that he's dead? I didn't know what to do at that particular time. And when Shirley died, I really got in touch with, if we're dealing with grief, there are lots of grief opportunities. We talk about grieving of a loved one, of a physical human being, but there are people that have emotional ties with horses and with dogs and with cats and with a job. And like one of the guys who read my book said, Larry, it isn't just grieving loss, like the loss of a person, but sometimes, like his wife has Alzheimer's, and so he's lost his wife, and he's dealing with that, which is a whole different way of dealing with grief. So it's a really big subject. I've spent some time trying to learn more about it, but also accepting it, about how am I going to deal with loss in my life. My second wife just died at the end of December or end of January in 2025. So that's been an interesting experience to apply the lessons that I learned in dealing with my first wife's death with my second wife's death. And when my first wife died, I was a widower with 4 kids, lost my job. Unemployment was 7.4% at that particular time. I was really scared, didn't know what to do. And one of the things I didn't know how to do was really be a dad. And so my learning book, the book that you always had choice, really speaks to all the learning situations that I put myself through to just learn how to be a better person, how to work with other people better, how to show up for my kids better. My whole philosophy of what I was going to do with my life, instead of being a corporate executive, became, no, I'm going to be a good dad. And it's really worked out well for me. I'm very pleased with how everybody's turned out. And they were a loving family, and I still see a lot of families that haven't learned how to love yet. So,
It's interesting your experience, especially when you found yourself in that situation. And some would say that, well, Larry, I guess you didn't really have a choice because you had those kids and you had the job. And so you didn't have a choice. You had to keep working and then come home and do the cooking and cleaning, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that you did. And one of those choices, which you didn't make, you could have walked away. You could have said, no, I am not going to do this. I'm done. I can't handle this. And there are people that do that. They
yeah.
walk away. Now, my present wife and I, when she went through her cancer, I'll call it a cancer scare because she was diagnosed and then she was treated through surgery and then chemotherapy. And she is still alive to this day, doing incredibly well and healthy at the age of 75, and has been free and clear. The PET scans have all shown nothing's there, which is and the blood work shows no markers out of range and so forth, which is fantastic. And yet there are those times when I hear the words come out of her mouth about why did you stay? I said, why wouldn't I stay?
Right.
Now, some would say, well, yeah, but you divorced your first wife and she wasn't diagnosed with cancer. I said, well, I was younger. I was only in my 30s. Okay. And I hadn't learned enough at that point in spite of the wonderful lessons that my parents taught me, and especially my mother in these last few years before my father's passing. He had some mobility issues and so on and so forth. And I probably in the last few months before his passing, um, he was bedridden, and she even had to deal with probably aspects of his onset dementia, which he was diagnosed with 5 days before his passing. She was trying to give him some water to keep him hydrated, and he fought her, saying, "You're trying to poison me." I mean, this is the story I was told.
Yeah.
And yet, and that still had to have hurt a little bit to hear that from the person that you love and been with for almost 62 years of
Yeah.
marriage. Um, and then there are those other situations where there are people that just can't handle it. I know that my present wife had a friend back when we lived in Phoenix, shortly, right around the time when she was diagnosed. And apparently, her own personal story, her own experiences, maybe with her mother or someone else who had had cancer and I guess didn't make it. And it was something she just couldn't handle. And she just disappeared. We never heard from her again.
Mm.
She was like vapor. And that has hurt my wife to the extent that she's never understood why, which I've tried to explain to her that people have their own experiences and they make their own choices based upon their ability to handle. You use a couple of words here that I find so interesting in terms of our inability, because you've already stated this, that we have a hard time communicating this whole concept, let alone coping, but also transcending. But my favorite word here, and thriving. And I'm wondering if there, when was it that if you, and maybe it comes and goes, I don't know, that you actually reached that stage where you found yourself actually thriving?
As you're talking, I'm reflective on the book cover of
Yes.
the big galleon that's going out. And that book cover is a reflection of a copper rubbing that I did when I was in the psych ward. That's where I really ended up and started to get help on how to deal with grieving, because all the other things that I was processing weren't working very well.
Mm.
And I found myself breaking down at the office and crying, and called my dad, and he said, "Well, is there somebody at the home office that could help you out?" And I said, "Yeah." So I called them, talked with the psychiatrist. He listened to my story, and he said, "How do you feel about going into the psych ward?" I said, "Great." He said, "Well, isn't that interesting at my age that somebody could be positive about going into the psych ward?" But I was already a consultant inside a large major company, using outside consultants in my business life to help me solve business problems. And I said, if it's okay to use consultants in my business life, why isn't it okay to use consultants in my private life without having any sense of shame or guilt or all that other stuff that was going on at that time about mental health? I mean, you got to realize I'm 87 years old, so go back about 50 or 60 years old, the attitude about mental health was really pretty, let's say we looked down on people that had to have mental health. But I'm really glad I did, because that's where the big breakthrough came. Now, it may sound funny that the big breakthrough came about always at choice. But what happened is, the reason I was there is because I didn't know how to cook. I had cooked, as a cook at Glacier National Park. I had cooked for a coffee shop. Well, I had cooked when my mom was sick with Guillain-Barré. But at that time, I wasn't doing very well cooking. So I asked for help. They said, "Well, you could cook here." "Oh, yeah, but you have to do it right. You have to read the cookbook, get all the ingredients." And it was in that process, when the ingredients had come in and I was in my little room chopping my liver, chopping my gizzard, chopping the celery, chopping the onions. And I got so angry. I had this big French knife in my hand and I'm chopping this stuff. And I'm concerned that I've got this knife in my hand and I'm so angry about my situation that I'm in. So I asked for help. Fortunately, they sent me to a room without the knife, of course. And in comes this little bouncy nurse and said, "Hey, Larry, how are things going? I understand you hit a little bubble." I said, "Yes, I've just spent 2 hours on this GD chicken, and that's how I'm going to have to live the rest of my life, cooking for my kids." Well, she says, "Well, you could cook for your kids, or you could how do you want to take care of your kids?" I said, "Well, you could then send them out to your family, relatives. You could send them out to friends. You could put them in school. I mean, you're a choice about how you want to take care of your kids." And I said, "It's no choice. I have to take care of my kids." "No, no, I'm just trying to give you some options about how you could choose to take care of your kids." "No, I have to take care of my kids. My dad took care of me when my mom was sick. That's what I have to do is to, show up like he did for us, my family. I have to take care of my kids." And we went over and over about me having to do something. And she says, "Well, I'm just trying to show you some options." And I said, "All right, I choose to take care of my kids." And it was like something shifted in my body the minute that I made that analysis. I hadn't gotten that in life before, that I was always at choice. We always talked about you have a choice, but not at choice. Like in the moment you are at choice to decide how you want to do it. You may not like the choices. You may not think that the choices are great and you're clear that that's what you want to do. But that became the foundation for living for me, that I was always at choice. That spun off other opportunities for living. Like if I'm always a choice, then I'm also always accountable and responsible for what I create in my life. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm accountable for Shirley having leukemia. Doesn't mean I would be accountable for your wife having cancer. Doesn't mean that I would be accountable for tsunamis or like snowstorms like we just had in Wisconsin.
That's right.
But I am responsible for how I think about it. And that's really where the comfort comes, that I know that now it's my responsibility to take care of me. And the question is, well, how do you take care of yourself in stressful times? How do you, when things aren't going the way that you want, or you got all sorts of stuff happening in your life, what's the process that you use to take care of yourself? So I had to come up with a way to take care of myself.
It's interesting. And I don't, I refer to him as a brother-in-law, just so you know that he was married to my eldest sister. And there were some things I did not know until he revealed them after her passing, that they had even talked about who he might bring in to a relationship and possibly marry.
Wow.
It's like, this is the forethought. I thought, wait a minute, what? Because I knew philosophically where they were coming from. See, we were all born and raised Catholic. But my sister, after she met my brother, I call him my brother now. And as a matter of fact, I call all my brother-in-laws brothers. After my father's passing, my mother, of course, is living alone in her townhouse. And we were having a little conversation in the dining room, and I'm just thinking, God, I wish that I could spend more time here taking care of mom and do things around here that she needs done and so forth. And and they said, Richard, don't worry about it. We will be here to take care of your mom. To which I responded, I said, it's so nice. I have a younger brother, a paternal brother. My mother and father, my brother, Mike, and I. But I said, it's so nice to have 5 brothers instead of just one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my brother Perry connected with, after my sister's eldest sister's passing, with this other woman that they both knew her, and so forth. Well, here's the thing. My sister had just passed away, his wife. He's with this other woman now, which I think is great that he found someone and they had this whole situation and arrangement. And before they were already engaged, but before they could marry, as far as I understand, she passed away.
Mm.
And I'm just sitting here going, I don't know whether God is trying to give you opportunities for courage and patience and love and what have you, or God is telling you, you really, you don't need to be in another relationship. You need to be solo and raise your grandchildren, and your daughter and so forth. I don't know if he's in relationship with a third person, but I applauded the courage he had, the willingness to step into another relationship that then turned into the same thing that he had with my sister, who they were together for some 40 plus years.
Mm.
It was just incredible. Do you find that when you talk to people about all of this, um, do you approach it from that same perspective of telling them about choice? Saying, okay, well, what are you going to do now? Not telling them what to do, but asking them, and then saying, now you can choose what they've said. You can choose to do this or this or this. And they have that same kind of resistance that you do, like, I don't have any choice. I've got to raise the kids, or et cetera, et cetera.
That is the biggest challenge when you want to coach somebody out of grief, is they're hanging on to old belief systems because they think they're right. And the idea is to open them up to other ways of looking at that. And many times people won't let the old beliefs go. They'll hold on to it like it's the right way to do it. I couldn't tell you what a right way is anymore. I don't have a way that you should grieve. I don't have a way that you should celebrate success. I have some ideas about celebrating success or thriving, as you were asking, how long did it take me to really thrive? But it was a commitment on my part, and that's why I was telling you the story about the boat. That rubbing is about a big ship that's coming out of a dark time, coming into sunshine. And there I am with a set of sailors, because I'm getting lots of help to take this big ship into the brightness. And that's where I think that particular boat, little ship, became a metaphor for me about how I was going to live my life, and that I was going to thrive and not live in sadness about the loss of Shirley. Although I lived in sadness for a while. I had to work it out. Again, I went to a place called Onsite. I had a belief system that I could trust the women that I loved to leave me. That wasn't working really well when so I would be attractive, and get these women to come to be in a relationship with me. And then I said, come here, go away.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't work very well. So now I shifted my belief system by trusting the women that I love to be with me forever. So, for example, I think, like you do, wonderful thoughts about your wife, wonderful thoughts about your relationship, wonderful thoughts about, unfortunately, I haven't lost a child yet. So but my parents are gone, my grandparents are gone. It's really accepting that they're gone, but only physically.
Yeah.
Spiritually, I'm connected all the time. And when I was listening to your other podcast where the people were talking about connecting with people in the past, I've had experiences with connecting up with Shirley about where her kids were and introducing her kids to her at that stage in life, because she'd be curious
Hmm.
what was happening with the kids. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That would be my part of thriving.
Larry Freeborg is my guest here on the program. We are talking about heading out on the seven seas, always at choice, and you can go any direction that you want. It's all up to you. We talk about that all the time on this program, and we'll continue talking about it as we continue. Tell me your story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. This is Larry Freeborg, and always at choice. I would say it'd be kind of fun, a companion volume to Choices 5 Steps for Life. You need to, folks, learn. And one of the things that I have learned over the years, I've even contemplated this, and obviously to no end. I would never do this. I remember when my first wife was walking down the gangplank of an airplane coming back from guide dog school. And she had this black Labrador right beside her coming down those stairs. And I thought, I know that in like 10 or 12 years, that dog's going to die. So I'm not going to get close. I'm not going to allow myself to do that because that's going to hurt.
Mm,
Well, uh, never saw the dog pass because they reach a certain age where the blind person gets another dog, and this first dog goes to the puppy raisers for the remainder of their life. They get to retire. So you
wow.
you might hear about the fact that, oh, Yora passed away, but you don't have that direct experience. Now, with my present wife and I, when I met her, she had a pack of Siberian Huskies, 4 of them. They were a sled dog team. And over the course of the years, I got to know them. They took advantage of me a few times and so forth. And then, of course, slowly they started one by one passing away until we moved to Santa Barbara with the last of them, one of the siblings. And he got an extra year or two, I think, from our moving out of the heat. And then
Right.
we had 2 other dogs, my dog Makushla, and then, of course, our dog Connor, who was a Shepherd Chow mix, that curly tail in the back, really cool. And they're gone. And in the meantime, we had 4 cats from Phoenix that we brought with us. We fostered cats at an organization. And during that time, we acquired 5 more. So we had a total of 9. We also had chickens. And then we had turkeys roaming the property where we lived. They're all gone, all of them. And now we have 3. And the price of admission when you have pets is the end. That's the price of admission. Well,
Right.
you can't be disconnected from the people around you and have relationships at the same time. It doesn't work. It's impossible. That's the dynamic. So it doesn't do any good for me to say, well, I like Larry. He's a nice guy, but I'm just going to keep my distance here, because I don't want to get too close. And then when he passes, then I'm going to hurt and so forth. But that's not necessarily true. As I shared with you about my best friend, Doug, he and I
Yeah.
were best friends for 53 years. I'm now 66. We went through grade school, high school, college, and a
Mm,
lot of other things together. And a week-long vacation to Kansas we drove. Now, that should have driven us apart. You know how they talk about don't travel with a friend,
right.
drive. But we stayed together as friends until he departed. And because of the relationship I had with him, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll shed a tear over his leaving. But we just had so much fun. I have recordings of the 2 of us and some others in a studio where we played radio. Oh, it was so much fun. Anyway, is that something that a lot of people start to think about, saying, "Well, I'll avoid all this pain if I just, so to speak, put up the shields"? Okay, nothing can get in. Of course, nothing can get out either. And it sort of violates something that James Redfield said in Celestine Prophecy, how we have messages for each other. What are your thoughts in regards to having those connections, sometimes very deep ones, regardless of the knowledge that one day I might leave before them, they might leave before me, It's going to be painful, maybe. Or is there a way for us to prepare ourselves for that eventually? Because my mother's 91. She's still alive and doing great. But I also know that she's going to one day get to that point where she's going to leave that body behind.
Actually, I do have a way that I approach it, but I said that I'm responsible for managing my mood. For example, if I'm accountable and responsible for what I create in my life, I'm accountable for my mood.
Hmm.
And I know that being positive is a lot better than being negative if I want to get some things done.
Hmm.
So I always used to hear about gratitudes, people being grateful for life. And what worked better for me was to think in terms of blessings. Blessings are things that come to me that I don't have any control over. For example, I think of blessings in nature all the time. Flowers, the color of flowers, birds, the color of birds, the songs of birds, trees, my animal friends, my horses, my dogs, my cats, all those things. And the interesting thing about them is they all die. They all die. And I can still appreciate them while they were in my life. So the fact that humans also die, I can still appreciate them in my life. I too was like you. I avoided getting close to people at one time because I knew that if something happened to them, I would have to grieve. I'm okay with grieving. I'm okay with accepting life the way that it is. I didn't design it. It is the way that it is. My job is to accept that life ends and to appreciate when I'm actively in it and to appreciate the people that have been with me along the way. And
Mm.
so that's how I deal with managing my mood because it's pretty easy sometimes when you're without a loved one to feel sorry for yourself, to feel depressed. But if I manage my mood through blessings, and I do 10 blessings a day, and I share them with a couple of other people, so they share their 10 blessings with me, which is more than I get maybe 20 or 30 blessings a day. And it's really, it's been interesting because I fell off doing blessings for just a little bit. I was experiencing some health problems and some other stuff, just feeling kind of sorry for myself. And I said, "Hey, Larry, you're not doing your blessings. Get back." And so it's like today will be a blessing having this conversation with you. And I thank you for being willing to have me on. Thanks.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking with Larry Freeborg, the book, Always at Choice, and we hope you'll get yourself a copy of that. We'll give you the website in just a moment as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Reverend Dr. D. He is Larry Freeborg, and we are talking about this aspect of choice, always at choice. And it certainly is connected to what we talk about regularly on this program, ladies and gentlemen. And that happens to be the fact that we always have choices that we are able to make. I wonder if you have made the choice and if you've had this, because you talked before earlier about the our inability to communicate on this subject really well here, especially in the States, in the West, if you will.
Right.
I have a feeling that I don't know about Canada. They may be considered part of the West. I know that in Mexico, they have the Day of the Dead on November 1st, and down in Central and South America, I'm sure that they deal with it. I saw one beautiful documentary on death where this documentary film crew would travel around the world and they were down in either Central or South America. It may have been an island as well, but anyway, and they were allowed to come into the village to film what was happening after this individual had passed away. And they're there preparing the body, as in many cultures they do. But then the film crew was asked to leave the village. They said, because what is about to happen, it's not something that's sacred and we don't want to show it. It's because we cannot be responsible for your safety, which means that whatever is going about to happen is of a rather, shall we say, violent or very actionable nature. And they didn't want the film crew to get hurt. They come back in 24 hours. And they did. And they came back. And it was explained to them and so forth. And I thought, wow. Have you had, and again, I love the documentary over. I have another example I'll share later, but have you had this conversation with your children? Because I'm sure they must have already experienced the passing, obviously, of their mothers and other people in their lives, because you're in your mid 80s, so they've got to be in their 50s or 60s now, right?
Right.
And my sisters and brother, who, by the way, is a new father. I was shocked to hear this. He spends half of his time in Vietnam, where he really loves the country and everything. And I guess the woman he's with just gave birth to his child, which I thought, wow, I did not expect either of us to have children. But congratulations, Mike, on that. But have you had the conversation with your children in regards to obviously your I mean, I don't know how old you want to be, live to be 100. Is that kind of one of your goals?
Well, certainly longer than 87.
Okay. But what about that conversation? Has that been a reality in your life?
Well, actually, not that particular reality, but I had a similar conversation with my mom when she was dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never had a conversation with her about what it was like to have Guillain-Barré. And I said, how did that affect you in your life, the Guillain-Barré? Because she was the second patient of Guillain-Barré that was identified at the University of Minnesota. And my folks didn't have any money. They took the last $50 they had in the savings account to get her into the hospital for this test market or testing of the disease. And I said, Mom, what was it like for you to be there with Guillain-Barré? Because I had never asked her before as a kid. And she said, Oli, I cried the first 13 weeks continually. Just thinking my life was over. I was 33 years old. I didn't know if I was ever going to recover from this disease. She's my inspiration about how to accept reality and to move on. I said, Mom, you've always told me Dad loved me, but I never felt like he really loves me. Why do you say that he loves me? And by that time, I had read the 5 love languages. And so as we went through the things that she said that he noticed, or she noticed that he did to love me, I realized that everything that he did was acts of service. He got up in the cold winter's days and built me my first toy for Christmas. He would get me up early in the morning and go pick up the Sunday papers, newspapers, and drop them at different parts of my route. He got me my first job mowing lawns and would get up early in the morning and drop me off and then have to come back. It was just, I was embarrassed that I had not recognized those things as his way of giving love, because I was looking for words of appreciation and physical touch. That wasn't quality time together. That wasn't his way of sharing life or showing love. When I learned about Shazan's part about how to learn how to express love, he was abandoned when his mother died when he was 2 years old, and he had to go live with a family of 7 other people that were older than he was, and he was constantly told, you're not one of us, you don't belong here. So he was already adrift in this unforeign family. That particular part of relearning about how my father expressed love and the fact that I didn't meant that I had some more work to do. And so I went up and gave my apologies to my dad, said I was sorry that I missed recognizing that he was just expressing his love And now I have a wonderful relationship with my dad, where it was a struggle for almost 55 years because I just wasn't asking what was going on. So you asked me my question, have I had that conversation with my kids?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Actually, not so much about their first mother because they watched me go through my struggles and watched what I was struggling with and how I could help them. But my second wife was someone that was loved and adored by everyone in my family and her friends. And so there's a real sadness of losing Dodie. And we're just about ready to sell the house that she decorated. This is my house, my forever home that I'm going to be leaving now, hopefully in about 2 weeks. But she really made an impact, and so we still grieve. But we had a celebration of her life about the first of the year, and just had a Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
We all talked about the wonderful stories that we had about Dodie. And it was kind of a wonderful experience, really, to hear all the ways that they love this other woman that I had in my life. I'm not asked I'm going to have that talk about how did they deal with their mother dying, because she was also a lovely woman. So I've been lucky with the women that I've chosen to live with anyway.
Absolutely. I'm just curious as if you'll incorporate into that conversation the realities of your departing someday, maybe, hopefully not soon, but we're all going to go. I mean, my father, one of my favorite sayings of his, he would hate it when I would call him a wise guy. Not a
Yeah,
wise guy, but someone who is wise in his life. He would say, "Eat, drink, and be merry in moderation, because nobody gets out of this world alive."
yeah,
And that is the reality of this world, that we live, we're born, we live, and we die. Now, that's the body. But you made the reference earlier to the fact that you still communicate with both of your wives, and I'm sure others who have passed on, friends and so forth, your parents. And I do that in the context more so of this program. At the end, I pay homage to several people who have passed, but also to my present wife, who is still with us. And one of my guests said, "You know that every time you mention their name, they're right there with you." And I thought, wow. Well, I don't have the time to sit there and list all of the people who've passed on from my life and so forth. They know who they are, and I'm appreciative for their being in my life because they have made me who I am. And that was one of the things about my father's memorial. Um, it's funny. My sister called me. My older sister called me, and she said, "By the way, I just want you to know that we're all going to have only about 3 minutes." Well, being in radio as long as I have been, I said, "Okay, no problem. I'll write something up and I'll stick to the 3 minute window." Well, turns out that I was the only one that did 3 minutes. Everybody else went long, and I had to laugh. I just had to
right.
laugh because if I hadn't stuck with the rules, I would have been up there for half an hour. But when I got up there to speak, I introduced myself because I had been named after my father, whose name was Leslie Richard, and I am Richard Less. And I've always been very proud of that. I don't always use it, but I was very proud of that fact, and that I had written a song for him. And after the memorial was over, the thought occurred to me that though it wasn't scripted this way, all of the statements and comments made about my father, and some of them I didn't even know about at the time, but I had this inner knowing. The theme could have been, "Dad, we are who we are because you were in our lives."
Hmm.
And I just thought that that was so cool, that it was such great divine synchronicity in that regard. We're talking with the author. By the way, is this your first book?
Yes, no, second.
What was your first book?
Uh, I was just a contributing author, so I only have one chapter in it.
Oh, okay.
Turning Point Moments.
Turning point moments. I like that. And that sounds to me like it would be a good companion to always at choice strategies for moving on after the death of a spouse or life trauma as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Larry Freeborg is my guest here on the program and always at choice. We are always at choice. I have to tell you, Larry, that when I wrote my book that took a good 20, 22 years to write, or actually get published, I should say. Yeah. As I would do interviews, either I was being interviewed, and I've had a few, or I was interviewing people such as yourself, and we were chatting along. What really struck me was somehow the universe gave me something that is at the core of our being as humans, and that's choice. And as you say in the title of your book, we are always, there's always a choice to be made. And sometimes the choice is to do nothing,
Right.
just to sit still. And other times it's to take action, to move forward. How has your inner life, how has something we promote here on the program, asking people to spend some time going within and listening to and following the promptings of that still small voice, how has that influenced you and the choices that you have made, let's say in recent days or years?
Well, it helped me choose the career that I chose when I was working for the big corporate America and also when I was independently employed. I had come across a guy's, one of my Toastmasters had just announced the evening that I was there. I was 27 at the time. I said, he's just been announced as the plant manager of a major motor manufacturing plant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I, at 27, felt brave enough to ask him did he think he was successful? He said, well, Larry, I'm not a very smart guy. He said, I didn't finish high school. I did eventually when I went in the Navy. I got a GED certificate. And I tried a couple of courses in college, but they never really fit very well. But in the area of production planning, I'm not trying to be braggadocious. It just happens to be the way that it is. He says, I think 3 to 4 times faster than the people that are next to me. So my secret for success is find out the things that you do better than other people. To be creative in that gifted area. And he said the third and the most important thing, there are lots of people that have lots of ideas, but they don't take action. So you have to take action if you want to be successful. And I thought about that. I was a jack of all trades, a master of none, didn't have a clear idea at all about what my gifts were. And that's where the reflection about what were the things that I did in my life that were fulfilling to me, where I was thinking 3 to 4 times faster than the people that were next to me. And that's what I chose to do, is to capitalize on my gifts and my strengths. And that served me for a long time.
And you continue to coach people as well.
Yes. That's the part that really gives me the most meaning, is that when I look at my life and how do I want my legacy, my feeling about what I'm doing. Well, I want to be of service. That's one of the reasons for still continuing to do podcasts and about the experience of being always at choice. But the whole idea is I do better when I have one-on-one conversations with people or small group discussions, and we talk about things just like we're doing today. That's why I'm enjoying this approach. I love podcasts that have given me an opportunity to speak to them. My measurement of success isn't by how many books I sell. My measurement of success is how many people read the story and it helps them.
Yeah.
And the great part of this process is the feedback that I've been getting from people who have read the book. They said, this isn't just a book about grieving and about handling trauma in your life. It's about how to live life more successfully and be more fulfilled in it.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I was just approached by a literary agent who wanted to hook me up with some traditional publishers for my book, which I thought would be fantastic. That'd be great. And unfortunately, I had to pull out. Now, they had offered me a six, is that right? Yeah, six-figure advance, which I thought, wow, really? You're going to offer that? Incredible. Okay. But I stepped away from that because I said it wasn't about the money. It was about the pressure. They were pressuring me to make decisions faster than I was willing to make them. Now, whether that's because I'm from the old school, being 66, that, I'm not going to just jump. I mean, I was willing to consider the possibility here, talking with this particular literary agent about moving forward. But as we moved forward and started talking with the one of the representatives of the publishing company, they were wanting me to do things in days that I just wasn't willing to do. And so I said, you know what, I'm out. I'm not willing to do this. Now, if you want to take the pressure off, my book does not need to be published by your publishing company next month. Okay. It took me 20 plus years to get it published through Amazon. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm willing to wait. But I appreciated the things that I learned through it. It was one of the things one of my friends shared with me when I told him all of the things that were involved. He said, "Wow, what a great opportunity. I'd go for it, see what happens." And so I moved forward as far as I felt I could. And then I made the choice to step away. And sometimes those are the choices that we make. We need to step away. And you did something in your life, and I did something not quite the same. You chose to go into an institution for a period of time to get the help that you felt you needed. There was a period shortly after my wife's surgery and chemotherapy. She was in chemo, and our neighbors across the street were visiting every single day, even while I was at work. And then I was given the opportunity to go to the National Association of Broadcasters convention in Las Vegas that year. And I wanted to go desperately. And I had just learned to drive. Now I was only 30, no, I was it 38, 39, something like that? Anyway, no, it was in 2000. So I was 40, 41. And I was driving this little Chevy Metro. And I wanted so bad to take that road trip. So I went to her and I asked her, I'd really like to go. And my parents are coming in to see you every day, and our neighbors across the street are coming to see you every day. So you're going to be looked after. And I'm only going to be gone for like maybe 2, 3 days. And we talked about it, and she wasn't real happy with me leaving for that period of time. But we had cell phones back then. So I went ahead and went. And it was glorious. It was absolutely incredible to get away and make that choice. And I dealt with the repercussions when I came back. That hey, I came back.
Yeah.
It was just a short little trip that I really felt I needed to take, and I understood that she was in a lot of discomfort and so forth. But I also knew too that she wasn't alone, and that's one of the reasons why I felt comfortable doing that. When you are talking with people, you remind them correctly that they aren't alone when they're dealing with whatever the loss is.
Actually, that's something that I could do more of encouraging people to realize that they're not alone in this process. So thanks for reminding me.
You're welcome. And we are not alone here on the program. It's you and I, and of course everyone who's listening and or watching this as the program is broadcast, whether it's on radio or on SoundCloud and the other outlets, or YouTube for that matter. And It's one of the things that is so perplexing to me, Larry. You made the statement that I couldn't agree with more. But it also ties into the analytics, whether it's the podcast or videocast. People keep telling me, Richard, you need to monetize. You need to monetize your podcast, your videocast, and so forth. You need to You should be making hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars doing this. You've been doing it for so long. You're so good. And I say that, you know, humbly. And it's like, yeah. And if somebody wants to do that and I'll give them a percentage, okay. However, I'm a one man band and the numbers are less important than the universe bringing to the audio and video recordings those people who need and or want to hear it. That's what's important, not hundreds or thousands. I mean, I've been podcasting and posting them since 2018 January, and I'm getting close to 150,000 listens through SoundCloud and the other outlets. I have under 300 followers on YouTube, and I've only been posting YouTube since 2020. That's okay. You know, there are some people who choose to follow, and when I post something, they're notified. But there are also hundreds of more people who are not following, who are listening and or watching. And they don't have to follow. I hope they do. I hope they subscribe. But the point is, like you, I just want to put it out there. Is that how you kind of feel? That you're not looking to make 6 or 7 figures off of Always at Choice, although that would be nice. But it's more getting the word out about how important this conversation is, dealing with the fact that we're always at choice and that loss is a part of life.
It's a very nice way of talking about it. It is I've had to reassess or assess, what are you really trying to accomplish at this stage in your life? If you're 87 years old, what's your measurement of success?
Yep.
Is it, emotional, financial? It's not a financial endeavor for me. And unfortunately, I get trapped sometimes looking at that and saying, well, how did you do? And that's the way of measuring. Because I don't have a good way of tracking who are the people that I've touched with my story and who are the people that are living it. But I've had some people say, boy, I go back and I read your book over and over again because there's stuff there that I could use. That is rewarding for me. That makes me feel like I'm doing what I'm here to do. And I'm appreciative of the opportunity to do it. I mean, they never had podcasts before early in my life, so I'm learning how to market books. I've got to get back to feeling good about my public speaking. I've got some growth opportunities that are still there. I've got learning programs like my positive thinking program. I'm learning about equine guided coaching. I just love that particular work and what it does for people. I'm really blessed that I'm curious. I'm constantly looking for the next thing to learn. So, and then share it. And that's what I did before.
Well, you and I share something else as well, and that is back when I was in my early 20s and I was working for a radio reading service for the blind and blind and visually impaired called Sun Sounds Radio Reading Service. Originally started, still remember, I can still see the studios. It was a converted office space in a 2-story small little strip mall office building. I still remember the address too, 1333 West Camelback in Phoenix. I don't even know if that building's still there. Nonetheless, there was one of our listeners. She was an elderly woman then. She's probably since passed. Her name was Margaret Pekarik. And she got me on the phone one day and she says, Richard, you're very good, but you could do even better if you were to go to Toastmasters. And I thought about that. I said, well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I found a Toastmasters group, and I was bicycling everywhere at the time. So I bicycled to this Toastmasters group. I got to tell you, it was the greatest experience that I've had at that time. And I'm so grateful to her. But another aspect of this too, you talked about, not really knowing the people you've touched. But the one thing that you and I both can acknowledge is that we are On the one hand, we've done it. We've made the choice to do the things that we've done. By the same token, we're beholden to thousands upon thousands of people who have been there and supported us in big and small ways to make it to where we are today.
Uh,
Sometimes I think about that and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, a community maybe the size of Santa Barbara, where we used to be from. I don't know about the millions, maybe it's in the millions, like Phoenix, Arizona, where I was born and raised,
right.
but I'm grateful for all those people because I wouldn't, this is like with my father, I wouldn't be the person I am if it hadn't been for all this input.
It's like all the sailors on the boat.
On the cover of your book, exactly
Right.
right, exactly right. If they don't do their tasks, then the boat isn't going to go anywhere, or it may just flounder.
Right.
It may just flounder. Boy, being out on the water. Do you ever get out on the water?
Yes, I live on a lake, Lake Wissota, and that's why I call it my forever home.
Mm.
It's something that I always wanted to have in my life. Never thought I would have it, but I have this lovely home on Lake Wissota, and I've given my pontoon boat to my son-in-law, so he's excited to take it over to Stillwater, Minnesota. So I'll still be taking boat rides this summer.
Oh, good, good, good,
But
good.
actually, what if I just make one request on my book, Always at Choice, that website?
Hmm.
I offer a consultative call for anybody who just wants to chat about their situation and get some clarity. Sometimes it just takes a couple of minutes of conversation, and that one's free. But just to chat, the number's there just to call me, and I would love a phone call.
So, what you're saying is the website is alwaysatchoice.com. Is that the website?
No, alwaysatchoice.net.
.net. Okay.
And then there's another one called, God, I can't believe, Larry at steppingthroughthegate.com. That's more of the, talks about the other offers, but the book offer is in alwaysatchoice.net. And
Oh,
that's also where the consultative offer is,
and Step Through the Gate is the other website.
right? And again, it was another experience of somebody had taken a workshop that I was in and said, for years I've wanted to take action on that idea that I've had, but I've never had the courage to step forward. And what you've allowed me to do is step through the gate. I thought that was such a great metaphor that I put it up as a business name.
And that is a .com or a .net, the Step
That's
Through the Gate.
.com.
Okay, excellent. Well, I want to ask you one other thing here because you have a section in the book about this. You've also just mentioned it a few moments ago, and I have been connected through some other people with something along this lines, and it has to do, basically, folks, if you open in your hymnals to chapter 12, it's actually let horses be your guide, and even in Santa Barbara, California, there is a group of people that uses equines or horses as healing tools. Talk to us about the connection you have and how that works.
Oh, in my learning journey, I was taking courses on coaching. The first course that I took said that there were three ways to intervene: mind, body, and emotions. But they didn't do a very good job of coaching the body. So I
Mm,
took another coaching course called somatic coaching, where I learned about the body. And inside that particular course, I got introduced to equine guided coaching. Equine guided coaching wasn't even around hardly at that particular time. And I was so impressed with it that I began to travel across the world working with people that were doing equine guided coaching. I will tell you, Richard, the experience that I've had working with a horse trying to solve a problem an emotional problem where I was stuck, was so powerful. I would still be stuck today if I hadn't had that experience. And as a result of having that experience at 55, I got I graduated from college. It had been an unfinished piece of business, but I had this equine experience. I love there I was getting the horse to do what I wanted it to do. And I had gotten it to trot on the lunge line. And then the coach said, what I'd like you to do is bring that horse down to a walk. He said, not even the cowboys trotted or galloped all the way out to California. You know, and I thought, wow, here I have been this business coach driving people to get things done. And here is a simple little, allow people to walk and just give them the support to walk. Well, that thing just upset me so I lost my train of thought. The horse stopped, I stopped, and I just could not get it back, my energy back to get the horse going again. In that evening, I had an experience that I had like this sharp pain that came into my neck. I couldn't stop it. And I had been sexually abused going through college, which is one of the reasons that I didn't get my degree until I was 55. I didn't have the courage to confront it. As a result of that particular experience, other people that were in the group that I was in had also been sexually abused. And it was interesting to have that experience. It would have never been revealed if I hadn't had that equine guided experience. I hadn't told my wife, I hadn't told my parents, I hadn't told a counselor, I hadn't told anybody. But that experience with that horse revealed that there was a breakdown in my system and I needed to do something about it.
And that's a lot of situation that a lot of people find themselves in. They've had such traumatic experiences, devastating to them. And yet, the one thing that this kind of goes back to what you said earlier about how, we don't talk about this stuff, is that, and I've noticed this primarily, I use the example of politicians. And bear in mind, I'm not getting political here. Don't worry about that. But what I have noticed over my short 66 years here on the planet is that when a politician is accused of an indiscretion, the ones who fess up, and the one I think of is Al Franken, who his actions were interpreted as offensive, and he took responsibility and he stepped down. And guess what? The story went away. They weren't talking about it anymore. What was to talk about? It's those who would say, oh, no, I didn't do that. And the example I think of is Gary Hart. And I'm not a womanizer. I'm not doing this. And of course, follow me and see. And they did. And they saw.
Right.
So it just seems to me that it's almost as if we need to hammer home that message that when you do talk about it, even if it's just in therapy, you don't have to go public. But even if it's just in therapy and get it out, that it doesn't hurt you anymore. You can let it go and you can move on to this one thing that we talked about from the very beginning. You can thrive, you can transcend and then thrive in the life that you've been given, right?
That's what I've learned is that that whole part about I'm accountable and responsible for what I create in my life, and it's really important how I manage my promises. And so one of the promises is that, I keep my promise. And I try to anyway. I don't always do it, but that was the thing that I had to learn because I went to some of these courses and they would say, well, you're accountable to get that stuff done. Well, sometimes I've got 2 appointments at the same time. I can't go to one. I've got to let somebody know that I can't be at that appointment on time and adjust it. But it's my responsibility to take care of adjusting it, not to disappoint the other person because they didn't show up.
Right. Larry,
Trust is,
go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Please
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, trust is so important in our relationships with others. And trust is how we speak about what we want to get done and what action we actually take to get it done.
Mm.
And that's just another learning point that's in the book about how to look at language differently than just nouns and pronouns and adverbs and verbs, but they're really things that make things happen.
Exactly. It's funny. Since I stepped away from this publishing opportunity, at first I felt very disappointed. Not in myself per se, but in the situation that it went in that direction. Because I mean, we started talking about, oh my gosh, that 6-digit figure that would do so much. We could do this, and we could do that. And again, we were recognizing we were dreaming. We weren't spending money we didn't have.
Right,
But I was disappointed in the direction that the situation went. And then, as I kind of went through that, and something too that we reinforce around here is that you have to go through these things. You can't go around them, over them, or under them. You have to go through. So as I go through that, I began to realize, but at the same time, here's what I learned. I learned, number one, to stand up for myself and to go after those things that I want. Sure, the money would have been great, but it was more I wanted to get the book out there to a wider distribution, and that would have been fantastic. But I also learned the things that I need to put together. And I don't have to spend an exorbitant amount of money they were asking for to do that. And so um, I learned some of those things, and of course, I did take responsibility. Thankfully, it only lasted about a week or a week and a half. Okay, it
yeah,
only went on for about a week and a half. So I'm happy that it didn't go on for too long. But again, I am happy. And what was nice when I sent the termination of agreement to the gentleman, to the literary agent, basically saying, hey, I think we've reached an impasse and we need to go our separate ways and so forth. His response was only I think 3 or 4 words, and that was, I agree with your decision. Just short and simple. And okay. And now I actually feel really good now, today, here, talking with you,
right,
um, because I sent that off this morning as of our conversation here. And I feel good about what I went through, what my wife and I would talk about, and how it eventually ended up. And I think that's one of the other things too, is like when my father passed. Yes, I was sad that I can't call him up on the phone and talk to him. But
right,
the plus is the what he gave me, what he taught me, and that now I can communicate with him. And the most important thing though, he was free from the body that had him trapped with onset dementia and Parkinson's. So that's something that I think you talk about too, is looking at those things, those positive things that we can be grateful for, we can be thankful for, that at least my dad is not suffering. And then, of course, the world events. Oh, he would just be beside himself. That might have killed him in and of itself.
right.
But I'm just happy that I still can communicate with him like you do with your two wives, and I thank you so much for sharing with us your story about always at choice strategies for moving on after the death of a spouse or trauma or life trauma. Larry Freeborg is my guest, and you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. Larry, thank you so much. This has just been an incredible conversation, and I thank you so much. And I wish you much success with this book and all that you do with the coaching that you're doing, and as many more years as you want. Okay.
Thank you.
And I hope that we can get together again. I don't know if you have another book in the works, but I think this is a conversation to have on a regular basis, because repeating it and repeating the conversation and letting people know it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. All right. Yeah, I know you lost. I lost my dog, and we lost this person and that person. But thank God we can say they were in my life. And
Right.
I'll share that homage with you in just a moment. But I have three final questions I'd like to ask you that I ask all of my guests. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching. Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We also are podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube, as I mentioned earlier, as well as Rumble, two video outlets, and we hope you'll subscribe and click notification. Please go to Amazon and pick up a copy of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And if you can leave us a tip, please go to PayPal. Put in my email address, richard@richarddugan.com, and leave us a tip. We would be gratefully appreciative. Thank you, thank you, thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. And finally, we ask that you take some time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, spending some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listening to that still small voice. And with all that being said, we move into the final 3 questions for a very special guest. And the first of those is, who is Larry Freeborg?
Another struggling human being who's finding out how to live life with joy.
What gets you up in the morning?
Bringing joy to others, helping them have joy in their life.
And finally, what was your best day?
There were so many that I've had, both with my children and Dodie and Shirley. So they have never sorted it out to try to find out what was my best day. I have so many that I enjoy.
Well, Larry, again, thank you so much for being here on Tell Me Your Story and helping us to do what we're doing here to try to change the world. Thank you, folks, for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, here comes the homage. Love to Lal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.